Aloha Mamas, and welcome to the CoronaMama Zoom Room. This show is brought to you by the Maui Mama magazine, and we are here for you, the Maui Mama, to connect, to express, and to share what is happening in our minds, in our fears, and our worries during this pandemic time. Our motto is #Share Aloha, not Corona. I'm Angeline Chu Longshore, and today we are talking about going back to school safely, because that is where our minds are at as moms and dads right now. Some of us have gone back to school. Some of us are still waiting because the date has been pushed back to August 17th. And that's because cases are rising. Now, we were in the whole nation the cleanest place in the nation for a while, and our numbers were super low. And then something happened. And now there's community spread, and we're in the triple digits. So we're thinking about that as moms and dads. We're also thinking about a case in Georgia at a summer camp where we saw children actually get infected and were responsible for community spread. So we know that that can happen amongst children now, young children. So all these things are on our minds as parents. And some of us already sent our kids to school. Some of us are keeping our children home because we just, would rather have them home, whether we're homeschooling or we're doing 100% distance learning or blended learning in coordination with the schools. But it's on all of our minds because this is a real thing that's happening on our island. And we all know that officials have said, we need to do the right thing. We need to have that aloha spirit and take care of each other. This virus is airborne, so we know the things to do. We already know what to do, wear the mask, social distance. But how do we teach our kids? How do we tell our kids exactly what to do so that we know when they're either at school or at a play date or with their cohort that they are going to be safe? Well, I have two experts who are going to help us out with that. One is about the physical things that we can do, and then the other is about the emotional things that we have to think about, bringing our children back from 5 months of being not in school and being at home and all the things that are going to be so different going back to school or going back to homeschooling or distance learning schooling again. So we have to realize, there's a lot emotionally that we can help our children out with too. So, and then there's something really actually fun in the show too. So for our Actions of Aloha segment, I ran into this guy at Long's Pukalani, how we talk story with people as we're walking by, and he made me smile. So I thought I'll just bring him to the CoronaMama Zoom Room show to make you smile. We're talking about the masks that people wear, and then the only thing you see is their eyes, their smiling eyes. So he wrote a song about that. And so let's bring him into the Zoom rooms for a little bit of fun. I want you to introduce yourself and tell us about you as a dad and then what you do.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Tori Knight, and I am a proud father. I have an 11-year-old son. His name is Crash with a K. That's his real name, Crash. And then my daughter just turned 4. Her name is Lyric. And then my beautiful wife of 16 years is named Camila. And we live up in Kula. And
well, Fox News called you the Lenny Kravitz of
the ukulele world.
Tell us about You're My Brother and how that came about.
Okay, so, life in America changed in 2016 when the president became the president, when, I don't know if my name is Trump, when Trump became the president, right? I mean, people were separating and people were fighting and I just didn't get it. Like, it was this call to be mean to each other. And I didn't get that. And I was like, we about unity and love. Like, I feel like we don't hear that on the mainland. You definitely don't really hear that. Like, we hear it in Hawaii more here than we hear on the mainland. But I was just like, I need to write this song about unity amongst races and classes and religions. And so the song came out, You're My Brother. And no matter who you are, you know, it talks about that. No matter, you know, rich, poor, black, white, Asian, doesn't matter who you are. I don't even, you know, I'm a Christian, but I don't even care what religion you are. We still should be brothers, you know, and that's where that came from.
That's beautiful. Well, yeah. I wonder if you want to share that song with us right now.
Oh, you know what? I could share a snippet of that with you.
All right.
You're my brother. Can you sing it now? You're my brother. Yellow, white, or brown. And you're my brother. I got love for you. You're my brother. And this much is true. Don't care about the clothes you're wearing. Don't care about how you pray. Don't care about this crazy notion. You and I won't have something to say. That's a little snippet of it.
That's so awesome. And it is so timely right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably didn't plan on everything. You didn't know what was going to be happening in the world.
No, you know, and I sat on the song for, you know, because it was 2016, now it's 2020. Like, I sat on the song for a while, and then we had the mass shootings in Ohio and Texas. And I was like, I got to do something to help those families. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to put this song out, and all the proceeds for that at that time was going to the families.
So I want to know what the reaction is when you tell people about your song and you get the picture of them smiling.
I tell them about the song, and then I was like, can I please take a picture of you, you know, and everything. And most of the time they're always grateful, but sometimes they're like, what, of me?
I mean, I'm looking at all those smiling faces and they're beautiful. I want to hear a little bit of that song, if you don't mind.
A little bit of that one.
You know, just a little bit, because we want to save a little for the end, so you all.
Oh, gotcha.
And you'll see all those beautiful smiling faces. But give us a little snippet.
Just a little appetizer. Okay, gotcha. I know that the times are hard, the times are different, but here we are, we're trying to make it work and make a difference, 6 feet apart. Even though the virus is here, we can't live our life in fear. Let your eyes smile. You gotta do it every day. Let your eyes smile, smile, smile. Don't let aloha go away. Black or white or whatever, you know we're all in this together. We gotta smile.
I love that little sample.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tori. It's so nice to meet you and be with you.
Thank you.
All right.
Aloha.
Okay, we will have the whole eyes smiling song at the end of the show. I guarantee that. But for now, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of what we really need to know about teaching our kids how to be safe physically during this COVID time. So I'm bringing in Nicole Pulver. She is with the Disease Outbreak Education arm of the Department of Health, and she's actually at home with her kids. So let's bring her into the Zoom room. Hi, Nicole. Welcome to the CoronaMama Zoom room.
Hi.
Introduce yourself and tell us what you do, but first tell us about your family. You're a mom of 3 kids.
Yep, I'm a mom. I have 2 15-year-olds, and no, they're not twins. One is actually adopted. My daughter is adopted, and then I have two biological sons. So I have my 15-year-old son, and then I have a 6-year-old.
So tell us what you do. Introduce yourself as the working mom too.
So I'm the public health educator for the Disease Outbreak Control Division at the Department of Health.
Let's talk about what's on moms' minds right now and dads. The big thing is that cases are rising, and we're all noticing things, different orders from school of what we're, either distance learning or full distance or partial. And some kids are going back to school part-time. So we need to know how to do this. We need to be going back to school safely is the topic of our show. And so how do we make sure as parents that we are helping our children to be safe? We want to talk about those things. So we're going to talk about mask wearing, proper hand washing, temperature checks, the signs of sickness and what to do about that, and then when we interact with friends and cohorts. So let's first, tell us your thoughts about what's going on as far as cases are rising and what we need to know.
Mm-hmm. So, it's not a hidden fact. Our numbers are out there. The cases are on their rise, and we think a lot of it has to do with, maybe people are letting their guards down. And we can't do that. We need to continue our safe practices. We need to continue with physical distancing. We need to continue with mask wearing and hand washing. And obviously cases were low when everybody was at home. But that may not be a good reality for everybody. It's definitely not mentally. And people need to work. People need to have a livelihood. So we have to figure out, how do we do this safely? And the guidance is out there. You need to keep your physical distance and wear your masks and wash your hands anytime you touch anything. So as long as we can keep that up, it's an invisible enemy, and we need to do what we can to conquer it.
So really do the things that we know that we should do.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And that will help to, I guess, flatten the curve.
Yes, and I find myself letting my guard down too, and I'm in the thick of things. I introduced myself to a new neighbor the other day, and we didn't shake hands, and we started off at a distance. But naturally, as you're talking to somebody, you just kind of close that gap, and then we're like, oh wait. So you do let your guard down, and you just need to constantly remind yourself.
Right. That does happen. So let's get to it. I really want to show people how they can teach their children exactly what to do, because teaching our children will help us to feel relieved as far as knowing that when they're not in our presence, that they're going to know what to do the right thing. So let's start with masking up safely. So tell us about some of the problems that people have with masks.
You need to be wearing it properly. It doesn't help anything if you're only covering your mouth. And a lot of people will leave their nose out. And so we need to also cover both our nose and our mouth. And then also when you are putting it on and off, this is my mask here, you want to only handle it by the straps at the end, because this is basically your contaminated surface at this point. You don't want to get that on your hands. So when you put it on, I don't know if you'll be able to understand me. I'll try. I'm going to do that. And then when you take it off, you also want to just remove it that way.
Just as an aside, like after you take it off, can you, we usually throw ours on the dashboard because the UV rays will cleanse it from the virus. Is there a way to put it like back in your purse? Like do you want to fold it inside out and put it away, or?
Well, so it depends on what you're doing. So both sides are going to be contaminated if, say, you had the virus, because we're keeping your particles within the mask. And then, if you came in contact with something else on the outside of the mask, so both sides are kind of contaminated. So, as far as the cloth ones go, I just wash mine once a day. Putting it on the dash is great. I shove mine in my purse too. I think, as far as if you want to be extra careful, maybe you could put it in a Ziploc baggie so that it doesn't touch other things within your purse. I just have a single pocket that I just always have my mask in. That's the only thing that's in there. There's other kinds of masks too, depending on what your child's comfortable with. They have the kind that attach behind your neck, or you could do like the neck gaiters that you just pull on and then pull up.
Oh, my son has one of those neck gaiter masks. Let me see if he can bring it in. Wyatt, bring in your mask. Wyatt. Oh, here he comes. All right, can you show us? Okay, come show us how you wear it. Let's see.
So usually have it around my neck first.
Uh-huh.
When I'm just walking around.
By the way, this is Nicole.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
And then put it over my nose and then over my ears.
Oh.
Pull that down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ears can make it stay up. Yeah.
That the ears work because you could put it up here, but the ears are working. So cool. I like it. All right.
You put it on your ears and you just roll it.
Oh, you can roll it.
Yeah.
Okay. Or you can wear it in half also, like.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Here,
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit more about mask wearing, because I've heard a lot in the Maui Mommies groups about, ages and what's appropriate and what's not. And some people have been like kicked out of stores.
So CDC is basically saying if they're 2 or older to wear a mask, but then there's a lot of, reasons to not wear a mask. So developmentally, if they cannot put the mask on and remove it themselves, then that's a reason to not wear a mask. So if a child has, special needs or something, or even autistic, where, some autistic kids just can't. So maybe that's, maybe we need to look at alternatives for them. We still want to protect them and help them protect the community, but especially for children that have those needs that they just can't wear it, we need to recognize the individual and know that maybe we need to find another solution for them, whether it's a face shield or maybe we need to really focusing on distancing with that child as opposed to mask wearing. And then time consuming too, is some kids just can't wear it for 6 hours. So let's focus on the mask wearing when we cannot be distant. So it's just about trying different things and really, being your child's advocate, and I think while we're trying to be safe, we still need to take into consideration that these are kids and they're fragile and they're growing, and we need to support them the best we can. How
can we teach parents how to teach their children how to put the mask on safely? Do you want to demonstrate that with your child?
Sure. Yeah. Let me get my 6-year-old. Jackson.
Thank you so much, Jackson. We so appreciate you helping us out, because parents need to know how to teach their kids how to put masks on. So we're going to have your mom teach the parents how to teach you. Okay?
Cat here too. Salem wants to say hello.
Oh.
All right, get down, Salem. Come on. All right, so Jackson, this is your mask. Okay, do you know how to put it on? Yeah. All right, show them. Good job.
Okay, so if a parent were telling their child who didn't know how to put on a mask, what would they do to tell them? What would they say?
All right, so Jax, can I pretend like I'm teaching you for the first time?
Yes.
Okay, you're gonna hold it by the elastic. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you put that up around your ears, right? Get over your nose and over your chin. Oh, careful, don't pull it too tight and smack it.
I like the colors of that mask. Okay, got it around the ear.
All right, now how do you take it off? By the ears, that's right.
Okay, you did a really good job with that. That is awesome. So would you want to help us out with something else?
Well, yeah.
That would be awesome too. Thank you. So I want to know how we teach our kids how to wash their hands properly. And I'm sure you know, but there's probably a lot of kids who don't know how. So do you want to help us with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you want to go over to the sink and set your stool up?
So
I'm gonna call my daughter.
Yeah, call your other daughter to help us out with the camera. Okay. So Nicole, tell us how we can teach our parents how to teach their children how to wash their hands.
So repetition is the biggest thing. And I always do and try to make it fun. So Jackson, do you remember our hand washing song? Can you sing it with me? All right, ready? It's scrub, scrub, scrub our hands, scrub them nice and clean. Scrub the bottom, scrub the top with fingers in between. Scrub, scrub, scrub our hands, scrub them nice and clean. Scrub the bottom, scrub the top with fingers in between. You got 2 times, and that's 20 seconds. I like the song because it kind of prompts you a little bit. You know, scrub our hands, scrub the bottom, scrub the top, and in between your fingers. And then Jackson also adds that he scrubs his nails a little bit to get the gunk out. And the biggest thing is the 20 seconds is to really get that friction going with the soap, and that helps to really get everything off your hands. So, you know, a lot of people will just like quickly, you know, and then rinse. Well, they didn't get a lot of friction going. They didn't necessarily move everything off their hands.
So the problems that some people have are they don't wash long enough.
Or at all. Soap, you also need to use, you know, a decent amount of soap. You don't need to use too much, but enough to get some suds going. If you're not seeing any suds, then you maybe don't have enough soap. Because if you just use like a little, like a pea size, you probably don't have enough. Then it also depends on the soap. We always use antibacterial. So.
Okay. And then
and kids like to be independent, so that's why I have a stool right in my kitchen. We use paper towels to dry because then you're throwing it away rather than, you know, using a hand towel or whatever.
so at this time, to be extra safe, we're using paper towels so that we're not reusing.
One time use. Yeah.
Mhm.
That one thing that I have used previously is I've had a basket out of washcloths. But they were one-time use as well. So you dry with a dry cloth and then put it in the used basket. But I don't have room.
I love that. That's what they do at the fancy hotels.
Yeah, that way you're not, you know, using paper towels all the time and create more trash. But at least it's still one-time use.
Perfect. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is temperature checks. So
Okay.
what do you have? You have a thermometer that you can do on the forehead.
So I have this kind. It's the forehead kind. Just because I've had this since he was little. These little 2-year-olds don't like to have things in their mouth or under their arms. Those tend to be a little more accurate reads, but for a quick read, you know, to, hey, are you okay to go to school for the day? I really like these ones. This one, the instructions on it is that you touch it to their forehead and then you push the thermometer button and then you swipe it back across their temple and then it's going to give me a read. It's 97.2 right. And I do believe this one tends to run just a little bit low, but it's, at least I know that if it's not over 100, he doesn't have a fever, or even 99, because at 99 is when I start to get, you're not quite normal, maybe. And the guidance is 100.4. So at 100.4, they definitely need to stay home. But typically, if you've got an elevated fever than what you normally run, you know, I as a mom, I usually go, 99, you're not normally that high. Maybe I need to keep an eye on you.
All right. Thanks, Jackson. Thanks, Caitlin, for your help.
You're gone already.
Oh, okay. All right. So you wanted to talk more about some other things like hand sanitizer. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so hand sanitizer is great, you know, for on the go when you don't always have, you know, sink running water to go. But a lot of people aren't fully using it the proper way. So if I can go over that really quick, you know, this is my little bottle from my purse. And you want to use about 1/4 size. And then the same thing for hand washing is you want to rub it through all the surfaces in between your fingers, everywhere. And rub it until it's dry. A lot of people just rub it on and then get going, but you want to keep rubbing until you don't feel moisture anymore. And then let it air dry. It still feels a little bit cold from the alcohol in it. You want to let it air dry before you do anything.
Okay. And if you
about 20 seconds.
Yeah, and if you don't, then you're still not.
Then you haven't been sanitized, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I just have a question about wipes. I know we didn't like talk about that, but when you're using wipes, do you have to let that dry too, like wherever
Mhm.
you're using that? Otherwise, it's not
Yeah, you
quite.
should let it dry because otherwise you're just gonna pick it back up when you start touching it. You know, like say you wipe your desk down at work or whatever. You want it dry before you start interacting with it.
Or like a shopping cart or something like that,
Yeah,
where there's a lot of
that shopping
stuff on
cart.
there.
Yep. And it's like our shopping place, they have our own. They have spray that we do it ourselves. I don't actually know what it is, so I actually carry my own Lysol wipes.
Well,
I
I
don't
always
know if it's a
wonder,
no.
like I always
Yeah,
wonder,
I
should
just
we
don't
trust
know.
their spray?
I would like to say that we could trust, but you never know. So it's always better to be safe than sorry, in my opinion.
So we could use our own wipes over that, let it dry, and then
Hmm.
carry on.
Yes, that's
Okay,
what I do.
that's great. Okay, that sounds great. Okay,
And the other
so
thing, like when you're shopping, is be very conscious about not touching your face. Like I know, the mask can kind of move a little bit, and so you want to move it back, or I know for me, sometimes I'll have one that like maybe has a loose thread or whatever. It tickles my nose, and so I want to like move it. But when you're shopping and you're touching so many things, I try to be very conscious at that moment to not touch my face.
and we are going to school in cars. So is there anything you want to say about like the car?
I hadn't thought about that.
Sorry, I threw that one at you.
My car, I tend to try and keep it as a clean zone, I guess. In that we will hit sanitize before we enter my car, so that it's not like I got in, I touched the steering, I touched everything, and then I hand sanitize, because I've touched everything. So I try to hand sanitize before I enter the car, and that way the car is still clean.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So then when we are now in this time where more of us are distance learning, more of us are going to be homeschooling, we really do need to be with friends, because if we go on this whole pandemic without social interaction, that's not healthy either. So I know a lot of parents are either going to homeschool in like groups or have little cohorts as like little friend groups. So there's at least that social interaction. So what can you tell us about being safe doing that?
So for me, it's about trust. My children are friends with some kids in the neighborhood, and I've gotten to know the parents. And it's always been a rule for me, even prior to pandemic, that before my children can go hang out at somebody's house, I have to meet the parents, because parents tell me a lot, just getting to know them. And is this a good place for my child to be? So if I trust that the parents are keeping their children safe, and as safe as they can be in these times of the pandemic, then I'm welcoming them into our little cohort. So like my daughter tends to go up the street to a couple girls up the street all the time, and we're okay with that. But that's like, it's kind of their back and forth, and they don't really introduce a lot of other people. It's when you start to introduce a lot of people that you don't know into your group, that's when your clean bubble can get popped, I guess.
Right. So it's really about the trust and maybe communication. I've heard about like really laying out expectations. I talked to a communication specialist at UH, and she talked about expectations, about like setting those expectations out so that people can know what you're thinking, what your level of safety feeling is, and communicating that. So I don't know, just thought I'd throw that out there again in case somebody didn't see that episode. So we were talking about your children. How are your children doing?
They're doing okay. My older son, who we didn't meet, his name is Timothy. He's very much a indoorsy kind of, I wouldn't say antisocial, because he socializes all day long on the computer. They play games, play Minecraft, and build stuff together. But he's totally fine at home. My daughter, on the other hand, she has struggled. She's very social. She wants to go out and do things. She wants to go to the beach. She wants to go to the mall. And so it's been a challenge. And then I've been trying to, open the communication with her, especially as what school will look like, because it probably won't look like what they're used to before. There's going to be a lot of changes, and, they're not going to be allowed to, gather around kids' lockers in the hallway and socialize, and they're not going to be allowed to go and get lunch together or whatever they did prior. So mentally, I've been trying to prepare her so that it's not like total shock when she gets there and teachers are like, oh no, 6 feet apart. But one thing that I have been doing, with her, especially since I started working at Department of Health, is, I've heard different terms. We are all familiar with the term social distancing. That's been put out everywhere. But the term that I'm leaning more towards is not social distancing, and it's physical distancing. Because when we think of social distancing, we're thinking of distancing ourselves socially. Well, no, I think it's okay for our children to socialize, but they need to do it from a physical distance. So I've been telling her, you need to be physically distant. You need to be distant by 6 feet. So it's a physical and not a necessarily social. So she seemed to receive that well, and that, okay, so I can still talk to my friends, but we just have to be 6 feet apart. Yeah, and she calls it, I forget what she calls it. She has a friend who's very tall, he's 6 feet, and they have to be his name apart.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that. That's so great. Well,
Yeah.
This has been so informative, Nicole. I mean, I think now we know exactly what to do and what to tell our children. So thank you so much for being here and taking your time. I know like you have so much going on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So where are you zooming off to now?
Oh, I gotta get some work done.
Endless
so I'm
work.
headed off to my desk.
All right. Well, thanks so much. And maybe we'll see you another time. I'm sure there's going to be many more topics that I'm going to want to talk about with you. So thanks so much.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good day. Okay. I feel so much better now that I know what to do physically to tell my children what to do to be safe with COVID. Now let's talk about the emotional part. Let's bring in Alicia Yochisugu with the Maui Family Guidance Center into the Zoom room. Hi, Alicia. Welcome to the CoronaMama Zoom room.
Hi.
You're back in your office. It looks like it's nice and cool there. I'm in hot Kula.
Yes, the air conditioning coming to the office was nice today.
Woo. So I wanted you to introduce yourself to us. And first, you're a mom. So tell us about your family, your kids.
Yeah, so I'm a mom. I have 2 boys. They're 1 year old and 3 years old. And I've been primarily teleworking with them at home. So they're part of my work team now. And also I'm a clinical psychologist for the Department of Health, Child and Adolescent Mental Health Division here at the Maui Family Guidance Center.
In Wailuku, right?
In Wailuku.
Yeah. So this is like the theme for the show is going back to school safely. And so I'm talking to you because this is the biggest things on parents' minds right now, as you know. And so we're all thinking different things with the cases rising all over the island. And schools are not shutting down their distance learning, and some are doing a little bit of in-person and distance blended. Tell me, because you're interacting with a lot of patients and other people in your office, what are you hearing and seeing that's going through people's minds?
Yeah, I think kind of the one really common theme across everybody right now is this feeling of uncertainty and kind of not knowing what will happen in terms of school. Really, that's kind of created a lot of anxiety for a lot of parents, a lot of just discomfort with unpredictability and not knowing what comes next, and kind of struggling with that feeling inside, and then trying to know how to navigate that and what to do with it has been really common in the families that I've been meeting with recently as the school year approaches. And then I think the changes of 1 week to the next, one day to the next, trying to get that information from schools, communicate with schools, and then how do they communicate that with their kids? So the parents are kind of in a weird middle position right now between getting the information, knowing what to do with it, making lots of really hard decisions. I think that's one of the other common themes that I'm hearing from parents is, I don't know what to decide. Some of the schools are giving them choices about, fully, distance learning, a hybrid version, or fully, in on campus. And I think parents are just struggling with knowing what's the right decision for their family, and feeling okay with the decisions that they make. That's really been some themes that have come up quite a bit lately.
Yeah, I'm a mom too, and we're all, like watching the news constantly, like what's going to happen next? But we can handle this, I think, if we are prepared as much as we can be, and we prepare our children as much as we can. So that's why I think it's really important to talk to someone like you who can walk us through how can we talk to our children so that they're emotionally prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you already kind of captured the most important thing, which is talking to our kids, right? So, sometimes it's uncomfortable for parents to have these conversations with kids if they're not sure themselves what they think or how they feel or really what's kind of going on in the world right now. So just having these conversations is really the most important thing. It's opening up the dialogue, for your kids to ask them, how are you feeling? What are some of your thoughts about, going back to school, whether that means distance school or on-campus school, and really first and foremost opening up that conversation so kids feel like, hey, this is normal. I want to talk about these things, and that's what parents can be there for. And really for the parents to invite the kids with it, really an empathic kind of listening that it is hard what they're going through. Everyone's going through it in their different way. And so to listen for their feelings and really hear through kind of some of the complaints, it depends if you got a teenager at home, they might be more grumbling or complaining or irritable, or if you have someone, a really small child, that might look a little different as well. They might just be kind of cranky and not seem to have really good words to put with that. But knowing that change is hard for humans. And so kind of just listening with that empathy of, what they're going through and what they're feeling is important, and that it's normal. And then being able to validate that for them is the next step, is to hear them and then reassure them, hey, what you're feeling is normal. It is natural and it's okay. And that you can kind of share from your own experiences as an adult and as a grown-up. Hey, I felt those feelings too, maybe right now, or maybe in a similar, different situation. But to help your kids feel like, hey, this is okay, because they're feeling things in a situation they've never been in before, and they need that reassurance. So any examples you can kind of share, it helps kind of humanize you as a parent. So your kids say, whoa, if mom struggles with the same thing, okay, that makes me feel a little better. It doesn't feel so scary sometimes.
I think I hear you saying like that maybe if we check ourselves, even as parents, of where we're at, because they can look to us to say, okay, mom is seeing what's happening. Of course, there's going to be natural fear. And then we communicate that, yeah, sure, I feel that. So we're not trying to hide it from them.
Right.
But just to say, you know what, I did read something about cases rising, and yeah, it's concerning, but here's what we can do.
Right.
And so that there's the admission like of reality, so that you're not like just ignoring it, because then kids can see through us all the time. We think that they don't. But to like really be transparent and go, you know what, yes, I'm feeling this, but, and then like that next sentence, like,
yes, the proactive. And also, right. So I try to help parents practice the and also, right? So this is the reality, and also here's what we can do. So we don't invalidate that, with a statement, but we say, and also there's things we can do to feel better, right? And there's things we can do to have some sense of control over what's going on. So for example, if they are going back to school, you can talk to them and play games or practice wearing their mask or practice all those hygiene things that can make them feel like they have some sense of control. They can do things like figure out cool ways to connect with their friends in a different way, right? Kind of problem solving and brainstorming the opportunities that can be fun and positive. Like, hey, maybe this child isn't used to kind of engaging, online or something, but really they can find different ways to do that and make it a fun, exciting thing instead of just kind of all the doom and gloom and dread, that can come from certain, areas, really trying to find what's positive in the situation as well can definitely help. And as well as kind of good modeling of how do we deal with distressing emotions in a general sense, right? So, moms and parents can teach their kids how to do some good body relaxation exercises if feeling anxious, some deep breathing, some muscle relaxation. You could do some yoga with your kids, and that can become part of your new normal if they are headed to the classroom and they're feeling uncomfortable with that. And so really what we want to do is give them that sense of control and power in the areas that they do have some control over something. And then, really exciting things like picking out your shoes or picking out your backpack or, different thing, maybe designing an area of the house. If you're going to do full distance learning, make it a fun activity of like, hey, this is your school corner, and you get to design it really cool and pick out some things. Really the idea is to kind of take something that, inherently makes us uncomfortable and transform it into something with good, positive kind of energy, so that, so they're getting the message that there's good and there's fun, despite, being in a situation that might feel disappointing or, frustrating or scary.
Mm-hmm. I love that you could talk about these things with your child beforehand, create the corner of their distance learning, because it seems like it will help them to envision where they'll be when they sit at that desk, when the moment comes. And so it's almost like they're practicing in their mind what's going to happen before they do it, which sort of like makes them feel like, hey, I've already done, not that they've done it, but walked through it in my mind.
Right.
So it's not
role playing, practicing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I was thinking about like when you said going back to school, we have spent so much time with our children in our houses, going to fun places for a time, coming back in, like now we're like, oh, let's come back in. And so they've been very close to us, which has been really wonderful for very many parents who didn't have to work all the time.
Yeah.
So, and even the parents that did work, I think there's probably a shift of energy of how we interact with our children, because this is a really precious time where we're all sort of like, we're in this kind of survival mode-ish, like there's something, a threat. So we've built a bond now. We've built something that's a little different from what was. And then when they go to school, or they even like separate, just going to distance learning, they're not spending as much mom time, dad time. What kind of advice do you have about keeping that bond, maybe, or keep us? It's so precious. I'm like, how do I keep that going?
And it's been so long as well, unless, kids did summer school or something. We're looking at least 5 months of kind of this different home life and family life. And so it will be a really significant shift, whether the Keiki is going to school or they're staying home and doing school. They're going to have to devote those hours to that. And they might have some unpleasant feelings about, hey, I want to just go to the beach with you. Or, I might not want to kind of redefine kind of what that looks like. And so some of the same things, right, of preparation and practice tend to kind of ease them into it, rather than just kind of first day of school, here's this different situation. That's really hard for grown-ups to adapt to, let alone kids, So the more you can talk about it beforehand and practice it and let them have some choices, then they can kind of have some ownership in that new process, and planning for fun, smaller things, right? You might not have as much time together if, they're returning to school, but planning for those quality time activities and moments, so they're not feeling this huge shift from all parent time, down to, oh my gosh, I have to, be in school all these hours and I'm not with my family. And so kind of plan some fun activities, where you can squeeze them in. And I'm all very, respectful of the fact that everyone's in a different place with what their life looks like, what their needs look like, and what their realities for work and school have looked like. This is, it's very different for everybody. And, some folks have to focus on different things at different times. But in general, we can find 5, 10, 15 minutes somewhere in our day to do something that's quality with our kids. And that's the stuff they will remember. That's what resonates for them emotionally. it can be sitting down and reading a book, or sitting down and letting them show you something they created. Or really the idea is that it's a time for connection. It's less important what the actual activity is. The activity is just the vehicle to build the bond and to keep the communication going. And a lot of times that's talking, but some parents and kids are not as verbal, but there's a physical closeness, or there's a physical affection that's taking place, or, just being in the same space. There's different ways to kind of build that closeness. The idea being you want it to be an intentional task, right? So as a parent, taking that 15 minutes or so to make sure that's what you're focused on and what you're doing, rather than, I think, part of stay-at-home order quarantine has been an exercise in multitasking for most of us. And despite how good we are at it and how good we think we are at it, the research really shows that not so much, especially not when it comes to really the emotional connections we make with people really do require kind of this undivided attention. Mm-hmm. And make that kind of the intention of the time that's being spent, rather than worrying as much about the quantity of time that you're able to do those things. So that kids can still feel that daily presence, that daily connection that they've been, possibly so used to over this last few months. That's a big loss,
Yeah.
And parents as well, parents also maybe going through that kind of process of missing spending so much time with their kids.
I really want to address also parents who are working. I mean, essential workers, people who have to work, people who have not had the luxury to be with their children. Mm-hmm. They've had to juggle all kinds of things. What's going on for them, and how can they prepare their children? Is there anything different that they need to do? Tell me what that's like.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear from, some parents that a lot of times, family is chipping in, with stepping up to help with childcare, and that's really amazing. But it also can, create some family dynamics and difficulties, when there's more than just one or two parents involved, the more adults, it allows for the possibility of, some internal family conflict. And that has been something, I've been trying to work with some folks on how to navigate that. And also, there's the programs and the hard decision of, sending my kids to, an after school program or a YMCA program, and afford that, that's an extra cost. And it's an extra, decision about, exposure and things like that families are really struggling to do what they can within their means. And so, there's a lot of parents who sending their kids back to school actually probably alleviate a lot of the stress they've been experiencing over the last 5 months, trying to make it all work with being an essential worker, needing to work, 40 plus hours a week or what it might be, that at least they'll feel a little sense of relief, possibly, that their kid is in a safe place, that they're kind of doing their routine thing, and everything in between, right? There's kind of a range of things people are feeling and people are experiencing. And for each and every person, it's so different. And I think the main takeaways are being flexible for ourselves as parents, flexible with our expectations of the kids, our expectations of ourselves. Even more importantly, I think some of the parental burden that we're seeing right now has to do with, self-imposed expectations. You need to do all of these things, or they need to be done in this way or in this time. And really, we haven't adjusted for pandemic expectations. It's just so incredibly unrealistic to think that you can operate with the same set of expectations pre-pandemic, living in this reality that we are now. And it's setting ourselves up to really not succeed emotionally if we're putting these expectations on ourselves and on our kids that aren't meeting the current situation. And so really just giving lots of praise to ourselves as parents for all the hard decisions and all the hard emotions, and also to our kids, that they may not talk about it. Not all kids are as open to sharing their feelings, but really they're all adjusting in some way. And so to praise the things we can and really make sure they're getting a large dose of reassurance that they're doing the best they can. They're doing a good job and finding ways to get all that positive, drilled into them in a time where, everything's kind of been turned upside down on its head. That really can kind of mitigate, the struggles that we're also facing emotionally. I know for myself, I'm trying to do the multitasking, working at home with 2 small kids, and every day is an exercise and pep talks of you're doing a great job and you can do it, even though it's not the same as, it looked before. It's just a different normal.
It's pretty amazing that you have 2 little ones that young and you're still like smiling and you're still working and you're still alive.
And that's a success every day. Each one of us kind of gets through the day. Everyone's alive, everyone's safe, everyone's kind of healthy, and the days keep rolling. I think that's success. That's our measuring stick right now. Like, we're living in a pandemic. We got to be realistic here, and give ourselves lots and lots of really good compassion and love to make sure that we can keep doing it, because we don't know how long we'll be doing this normal, and so we've got to think long term. How can I take care of myself? How can I be healthy so that I can keep doing all of these things for the kids? And you're modeling that for them, right? We're talking to kids about doing these really hard things, returning to school, distance, blended learning. Those are all really hard things to adapt to. And we want to show them how to do it healthfully, because a lot of times, we don't have the skills until we get faced with the opportunity to use them. So having them learn the skills and us modeling it for them as the adults, so they can see, oh, mommy does this when she's like stressed out. My 1-year-old does deep breathing, like, that's what he sees mommy doing, So, they really are watching and they really pay attention, and they might growl a little here and there too.
One more thing I was thinking about that I've seen a lot in the mommies groups, concern about teenagers, because and in general, I'd like to know about your thoughts about socializing. This is such a big part of children's lives normally, and we're all told now, safer at home, safer, without other people. And I mean, we're supposed to be under 10 right now of groups, but I think a lot of people are on 2 different sides, fearful to be with anybody, and then like, oh, but we really need to get together. So we have these different thoughts. What's your advice as far as general, and then also for teens? What can we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think teenagers sometimes are kind of this overlooked group in this whole situation, because they're old enough and able to kind of tend to their own physical needs. They can make a sandwich, they can, take care of their basic needs rather than the small ones. But really, they're kind of impacted in some of the most drastic ways, because their life and their developmental stage is social. I mean, that's really their major developmental task at that age, is differentiating themselves from their family and from their parents, and finding their identity, developing their identity, which is done primarily through their social interaction with peers. And that's why we see, peers become the important thing during that developmental stage. And it's totally normal, despite how parents feel about it. And so we want to be, respectful and honor that that's what they need on a biological developmental level, is they need their peer group. Now, what that looks like, practically can change, right? And it has changed significantly with, a balanced awareness of safety and engaging in safety behaviors, but also, having respect for the fact that their mental health is, in my opinion, equally as important as their physical health, because we see, teenagers have a high numbers of depression and anxiety and suicide and self-harming behaviors and substance use and all of those things that we want to kind of be able to make sure we do our part to help make sure we're not contributing to those things worsening. And so how they socialize with their friends might look different, but as parents, we want to be extra careful not to minimize the importance of that. That is something, I sometimes hear parents doing, it's not that important, the COVID-19 is, so much more important, so to speak. And so their heart's in the right place, as a parent, they're trying to protect their child, but really what we want to do instead is validate that it is important. In fact, it's incredibly important that their friends and being able to communicate with their friends is as important as washing their hands. If we kind of equate it in that way in our brains. And then what we can do is figure out ways to do it, right? And figure out safe ways to do that. And that on a a health safety behavior is really for each family to decide what that looks like. But on an emotional level, we want to just make sure we're validating how they're feeling and we're respecting the importance of their social interactions. And we're trying our best, whatever is in our means, to allow them to do it as much as possible, as long as they're meeting their other obligations. So for instance, something like screen time, right? We hear all the time about trying to reduce screen time. This pandemic has put us in a unique situation with regards to screen time. And especially for teenagers, if that is their means of social communication, we cannot just, dismiss that and say, well, you should be outside doing some outdoor activity, when we're also telling them, well, you can't go see your friends in person. So really it's for us to be flexible with our expectations as parents and as society in general. We have a tendency to give teenagers a bad rap. But really to say, maybe they are a little bit glued to their phones, maybe they're, on their Xbox Live or whatever it might be, a little more than we feel comfortable with pre-pandemic. But really, if we check all the indicators that they're doing pretty well, they're healthy, and those things are not taking away from their health and well-being, and in fact, they're enhancing their health and well-being, I think as parents, it behooves us to take a look at like changing our expectations of that a little bit, given, the situation we're in, so that they can communicate with friends. That being said, we always want to monitor, make sure it's healthy. We know a lot of things, that happen in those forums can be detrimental as well. So we want to have the right balance of monitoring and freedom and trust and have all those same conversations we would have with our teens anyways about what healthy social boundaries are and what healthy friendships look like. And so they can engage in that in a way where we have confidence that they know what they're doing, as long as we're keeping track and they're not sitting in their room for 12 hours unchecked on. But yeah, I mean, if we can get outdoors and do stuff, that's great too. We want to balance it all together. But really for the parents to really dig deep and respect that need, I think is probably the biggest tip there. Because it's crucial for them, and I'm a little bit nervous about the effects of how long this will go on, that these teens may start to feel very isolated, and especially depending on their means and access to their friends, mental health wise, there's some big concerns in that area.
Mm-hmm. I just remember being back to teenager time myself and being on the phone and having that phone line as like the lifeline to my joy,
Absolutely.
like you hang on to that phone because you need that communication with your friends. It's like your joy. And
Right.
this modern day, the phone is it could be discourse, it could be Xbox where they talk over different games. Mm-hmm. And they can do shared activities together. So it's actually, I think, like we're doing Zoom, I feel like it's a tool now, and to like maybe shift a little bit to see that it's not just screen time, but it can be used as a tool for productivity and for social. So like there's these different phases of, okay, I'm going to use this for productivity to do some work. And then now I'm going to use this for social time and to allow maybe a balance of that. And then let's go outside and find some joy. I was like trying to get my child to surf all the time because I love surfing. And then he got really like, after all, we're going to Hokipa again, And so then, but what I realized is like dragging him was not working. So my husband realized that he likes kiteboarding. So it was really like, and he's like, yeah, I want to go. So it's really, for us, it was finding the joy, like finding, like not forcing it because, it's good for you. You've got to go get outdoors. And then I don't like hiking so much. And he's like, I want to go to the forest. I'm like, oh. So it was more to me like, okay, I need to find joy, like for him, like how can I get him outdoors? But where is the excitement and anticipation of, yes, I want to do that kind of thing. Because I think as parents, we want to do the right thing and like balance them, this, and this. Right. But then for me, I was feeling like, I'm trying to push him. And I don't like being pushed. I don't like being, because for your own good kind of thing. And I was like, right. No, that's probably not a good thing. And so since we're in this, I think we're really looking, if we have time, looking at our children like screen time. Oh, that's so bad, But I think we have to really kind of like take a step back on a lot of things and sort of I'm trying to think of the word, not give ourselves relief, but not be so hard on ourselves and our kids in so many ways.
Flexibility, absolutely.
Yeah, so much demand, so much like
Mhm.
we're in a pandemic, like you said, like we're in a pandemic. So like, let's just
Right.
relax a little bit, you
We
know?
have a saying. We use that on some of our work meetings, that we're not working from home. We're working during a pandemic, and that's different, right? So it shifts how we kind of even feel about our kid popping on the screen during a meeting, or us needing to pause. And it gives us a different level of kind of permission to be very human, and kind of I think it's appropriate to apply the same thing to our kids. They're not going to be going to school and just distance learning in an ordinary circumstance. They're distance learning during a pandemic. And that with that comes so many layers, emotionally and socially, that really flexibility of our own thoughts is really important, our expectations, and really just flexibility with everything, the government, the society at large, the healthcare and all of those things. Really what we're being kind of challenged to, from every angle, is how flexible and how adaptable we can be to rapid change. And so our kids, same way, and their teachers, I'd like to say, I support, how hard this all is on teachers as well. I can only imagine making these transitions, and really, they care so deeply about our kids. And so for parents to kind of remember that as well, and try to extend the same compassion to teachers that we're trying to extend to ourselves, and our kids, that we're all doing this for the first time. And we're all trying to do the best we can. And sometimes that's going to have, tantrums or fits, or different kind of ways of expressing some of those emotions. And really, we can see it as opportunity. Hey, we get this opportunity to teach our kid, hey, here's a different way to express that emotion you're feeling, in a way that isn't going to push everybody away, or in a way that isn't going to have you feeling isolated and unsupported. But let's talk about ways to feel what you're feeling, and deal with that in a healthy way. And that's kind of the opportunity we were given that we never asked for.
I know, I was just going to say, like, there's always silver linings if we can see it as a silver lining, that, we are forced to communicate in a different way because we're in like a worldwide crisis, and when crises happen, you could look at it as like, oh, this is so horrible, or what is the silver lining? And in this instance, we're talking about like, we're needing to communicate differently with our children, with the rest of our family, extended family, and how we do things. And so maybe it's that opportunity to say, how do I really want to be communicating? Where before we would have never really thought about it. Now we're like, we have to. So, so I think it could be good. I'm always looking at the good, like, to be conscious.
And that's what we want to do for our kids with school, is yes, acknowledge all the parts of it that, for lack of a better word, kind of suck. And be really frank with them. Like, yes, honey, this sucks. I get it. And then also, find the balance of highlighting for them, because they may not be able to come up with the positives on their own. And so we can help highlight for them, like, hey, this is a cool part about this, or look at this, you get to do this you've never done before, and really trying to bring that to the front of their mind. And that will help dictate their mood quite a bit, where their attention is kind of focused, and doing that, in a genuine way. Like you said, our kids will see right through us. So we have to be pulling it from a genuine place within ourselves. And it can make a huge difference with how they enter this next school year, and how they fare. How they succeed is going to have a lot to do with how they're feeling, and how they're able to cope with how they're feeling as well. The most important thing is that kids kind of are getting what they need. And so whether, that's, extra mental health care, whether that's some assistance in school, really the parents, to just reach out, ask the questions, if you don't know who to call, there's always that 411 resource, you know, that kind of, you explain to them what you need, and their whole job is to kind of get you pointed in the right direction of services. And so that's really, really useful. Our Child and Adolescent Mental Health Division is, the abbreviation is CAMHD. We call it CAMD. The best way to kind of access that is head over to the website. You can get a lot of information.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much. It's so great to talk with you and get all of this insight. So I know that you have kids at home. Are you Zooming off back to see them? Take care of them?
That's my everyday. Try to squeeze in a little work here and there, and then I Zoom back off to, I think it'll be post-nap outdoor playtime. I'll be Zooming off to maybe a little backyard swim playtime.
Sounds great. Oh, on a hot day, that's perfect. Well, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you sometime again, I'm sure.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye.
Okay, mamas, wow. We just covered a lot of serious stuff, but I feel really like great that we know what to do now. And I want to correct one thing. That information line actually is 211 rather than 411. And then the Maui Family Guidance Center phone number is 808-243-1252. And one last thing, I know a lot of you are working parents, or you have a lot of things that you really have needs, COVID needs for. So there is a resource that I want you to check out. It's a helpful website by the Hawaii Children's Action Network. I'll include those in the show notes on the Maui Mama Facebook page, so look for those there. But it's covid19.hawaii-can.org, which is a mouthful. So look on the Facebook page on Maui Mama Magazine. All right, are you all ready for those smiling eyes behind those masks? I am. And I want to thank you for being here. Thanks for tuning in. And I just want you to, take care of your Keiki. Be well yourself, and we'll see you next week. Aloha.
The times are rough, the times are different, but here we are. We're trying to make it work and make a difference. 6 feet apart, even though the virus is here, we can't live our life in fear. So let your eyes smile. You gotta do it every day. Smile, 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 and let Aloha go away. Black or white or whatever, then we're all in this together. Gotta smile. I know it's hard with all the restrictions. It can give you the blues. So just go outside and be some life and turn off the news. Even though you should be wearing a mask, this too will come to pass. So let your eyes smile. You gotta do it every day. Let your eyes smile, smile, smile. Aloha, go away. When the world starts spinning again, you and I should still be friends. We gotta smile. To first responders, the nurses and docs, who never seem to ever get off the clock. The essential workers doing their thing. Thank you for the normalcy you bring.